Welcome, focused learners, to this explainer. If you're currently staring down the barrel of upcoming exams, feeling that familiar wave of overwhelming stress, and, let's be honest, finding yourself procrastinating way more than you're preparing, take a deep breath. You're in exactly the right place. We know exam season can feel like this impossible mountain to climb, and it's so easy to beat yourself up for lacking motivation. But today, we're going to look at the actual science of how your brain works. We'll show you how to flip the script and make studying not just painless, but incredibly effective. And maybe, just maybe, even a little enjoyable. Well, let's start by validating a struggle we literally all face. Why does scrolling through your social feeds for 2 straight hours feel completely effortless, while sitting down to study for 10 minutes feels physically impossible? If you've been telling yourself that you just lack discipline, you need to let that go right now. Seriously, your reward system isn't broken. It's just overloaded by constant, rapid-fire digital stimulation. Every notification, every short video, it gives your brain a tiny hit of dopamine, which recalibrates your baseline to expect constant entertainment. Compared to an algorithm that was literally designed by a multi-billion-dollar industry to keep you hooked, reading a textbook is naturally going to feel completely understimulating to your biology. Okay, let's dive into this. You absolutely don't need some massive, month-long digital detox to fix this. You just need to swap the chaotic scrolling for, say, a quiet coffee. By carving out just a 30 to 60-minute window of low stimulation, offline time, maybe going for a walk without your headphones, or simply having your morning coffee without staring at a screen, you actually allow your brain's reward system to return to its natural baseline. This quick, simple reset is the ultimate life hack. It levels the playing field for your brain so that normal tasks, like studying, actually start to feel engaging again, instead of feeling like a massive uphill battle. So to get you completely exam ready, we're going to follow a clear 6-step playbook: hacking your exam brain, setting your study stage, beating the starting friction, finding your flow state, mastering your memory, and finally, building unstoppable study momentum. Step 1, hacking your exam brain. You see, true behavior change is really about identity change. It's one thing to say you want to be a good student, but as the author James Clear points out, it's one thing to say I'm the type of person who wants this, but it's something very different to say I'm the type of person who is this. You have to stop saying I have to study and start embodying the identity of a dedicated student. Some people even use a technique where they romanticize their studying. Think of it like acting as the focused, determined main character in a K-drama training for their big moment. Put on a specific study outfit, brew a nice cup of tea, and really embody that identity. Because when studying becomes a natural part of who you are, the friction just drops. And this identity shift feeds directly into the 4 stages of habit formation: cue, craving, response, and reward. Your intrinsic motivation really fires up when you connect the response, which is the act of studying, to a much larger, meaningful reward. You don't just want a passing grade, right? Maybe you want to master a skill to help others or build a career that you deeply care about. When you attach what you're studying to a bigger purpose, you engage the dopaminergic systems in your brain. You aren't just memorizing facts anymore. You're actively building your future. Step 2, setting your study stage. Your physical environment shapes your attention way more than you probably realize. To achieve deep work, you absolutely need a workspace that actively reduces demands on your brain. That means picking a spot with low foot traffic and positioning your screen about an arm's length away, roughly 20 to 28 inches. By optimizing natural light and controlling background noise, you're essentially building a mental fence around your desk. The moment you sit down, your brain recognizes that boundary and instinctively knows, okay, it's time to focus. So the crucial point is that visual clutter literally drains your attention. Studies actually show that visual chaos in your field of view actively increases your cognitive load. Your brain is constantly, subconsciously processing that messy stack of papers, those random chargers, the 3 empty coffee mugs sitting there. By doing a super simple 2-minute desk cleanup right before you start, you're freeing up massive amounts of mental processing power that can now be laser focused on your exam material. Step 3, beating the starting friction. Now, what's really interesting here is how we can trick our brains into starting. We can use a fascinating psychological quirk called the Zeigarnik effect to our advantage. Named after psychologist Bluma Zeigarnik, this principle shows that our brains remember unfinished tasks far better than completed ones because they create this mental tension. It's an open loop that the brain desperately wants to close. So we can essentially force ourselves into a state of momentum just by opening a loop. And the absolute best way to open that loop is the 5-minute rule.
It's a brilliant cognitive behavioral therapy technique. Just pick a tiny, super specific task, like read one paragraph or brainstorm 3 bullet points. Set a timer for exactly 5 minutes and give it your full, undivided attention. When that timer goes off, you have total permission to stop. But here's the magic. Because of the Zygarnik effect, once you've started, the barrier to entry totally vanishes. Perfectionism disappears, the mental tension is there, and honestly, more often than not, you're gonna naturally wanna just keep going.
Step 4. Finding your flow state. If you ever feel lonely or find yourself getting easily distracted once you finally sit down to work, you definitely aren't alone. In 2023, videos with "Study With Me" in the title racked up a massive 520 million views on YouTube alone. That number is wild, right? But it highlights the incredible power of co-working and what's known as body doubling. Having a virtual study buddy, even if they're just playing silently on your screen, provides a real sense of social accountability. It normalizes the struggle and creates this supportive environment that literally keeps you anchored to your desk. This deep immersion is exactly what psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi famously called flow. Think about this for a second. Your human mind can process an incredible 120 bits of information per second. When you challenge yourself optimally, meaning the task isn't boringly easy, but it also isn't impossibly hard, your mind reaches its full processing capacity. The internal chatter fades away, time distorts, and you become completely absorbed. You sync your action and awareness effortlessly. This is where high-quality exam prep actually happens. And better yet, it leaves you feeling genuinely motivated and fulfilled. Let's move on and see how this builds perfectly into step 5, mastering your memory. The single biggest mistake students make is passively rereading their notes or just highlighting text, assuming it's somehow sinking in. Spoiler alert, it rarely is. You need to treat your brain like a muscle. Active recall forces that mental muscle to work. By testing yourself from memory, using flashcards, or trying to explain a complex concept out loud as if you were literally teaching a friend, you're actively retrieving the information. And that intense effort is exactly what builds the strong neural pathways required to actually retain that memory long term. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how we can use spaced repetition to make sure those mental muscles retain what they've learned. It's called the 2-3-5-7 method. Instead of cramming the night before in a total panic, you strategically space out your reviews to hack your brain's natural forgetting curve. You review your notes 1 day after class. 3 days later, you test your memory. 5 days later, you tackle past exam papers. And 7 days later, you target only your weak spots. It is mathematically the absolute most efficient way to study. It saves you time while drastically boosting your grades. Step 6. Building unstoppable study momentum. One of the most powerful ways to fully automate your studying is a technique called habit stacking. It's brilliant. You take an existing, deeply ingrained daily habit and you seamlessly link your new study habit right on top of it. So for example, your new rule becomes, after I pour my morning coffee, I will immediately sit at my clean desk and study for 5 minutes. You don't even have to think about it anymore. The coffee is the cue. It completely removes decision fatigue, building this automatic, unstoppable momentum day after day. Ultimately, this all comes down to understanding the critical difference between goals and systems. Goals are all about the results you want, like getting an A on the exam. But that's just winning the game once, right? It's a temporary result. Systems, on the other hand, are about the processes, your daily dopamine resets, your 25-minute flow sprints, your spaced repetition timeline. Systems are about continuing to play the game with permanent processes. Goals give you direction, sure, but your daily systems are what actually guarantee your progress. To tie this entire survival guide together, keep this phenomenal insight from the book Atomic Habits in mind. Take a breath and really let this sink in. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. Think about it. When you're exhausted, when exam stress peaks, and when your motivation is at absolute zero, you aren't going to magically rise to the occasion just because you really want a good grade. No, you'll fall back on whatever daily habits and systems you have already built. So as you look toward your upcoming exams, ask yourself this. Are you going to rely on the temporary, fleeting hope of a goal, or are you going to build the unstoppable power of a system? You have all the tools now. Take a quick dopamine reset, go clean up your desk, set a timer for 5 minutes, and go crush those exams. You've got this. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and happy studying.